When we review a car, we often find ourselves at the mercy of the elements. In the case of the 2018 BMW X3, that turned out to be a good thing. A rapid succession of bitter cold, unusual warmth for Chicago, rain, ice, snow, and then more bitter cold over a period of 7 days taught me that the X3 is an excellent cold weather car. The interior warms up very quickly for a car of its size with a heated steering wheel that becomes hot to the touch. The handling in snow and ice is exemplary, and it's a great car if you need to give someone a jump start. But that's just part of the picture for the X3. Generation X, the familiar BMW grille and badge. The X3 is easy on the eyes. A side view of the 2018 BMW X3 in dark olive metallic. The 2018 X3 is a bit longer and wider than its predecessors. The 2018 model year marks the beginning of the third generation for BMW's mid-sized crossover/SUV. And the X3, with its high driving position, definitely feels like more of an SUV than a crossover. On the outside, there are not many differences between the 2017 and 2018 X3. The 2018 model is a couple of inches longer and a half-inch wider. The added length appears to be between the axles, as the wheelbase is 2.2 inches 5.6 centimeters longer this time around. The model we tested, the X3 xDrive 30i, sports a 2.0L 248 horsepower 185 kilowatts turbocharged, inline four-cylinder engine capable of 258 pounds-feet 350 newton-meters of torque. If the 4-banger isn't enough for you, you can upgrade to the M40i, which offers up a 3.0L 6-cylinder engine with 355 horsepower 265 kilowatts and 369 pounds-feet 500 newton-meters of torque. There's an 8-speed transmission that responds differently depending on driving mode, and paddle shifters if you want to go the manual route. The 2018 X3 starts at $42,450, but to make the car interesting and fun to drive, you'll need to pile on some extras. Our tester included the $2,850 convenience package, keyless entry, panoramic moonroof, $1,300 parking package, an $800 driving assistance, and $1,400 dynamic handling package, which still left me without adaptive cruise control or lane keep assist, and the $3,300 premium package, heated steering wheel, heated seats, sat-nav, and heads-up display. Pile on some more stuff: CarPlay compatibility, wireless charging for a Qi-enabled smartphone, and a Harman Kardon surround sound, and the sticker price is $57,620. And that's without the full driver assistance package. In my review of the Audi Q5, I rightfully caught some flack from readers for not commenting on how Audi charges a pretty penny for its driver assistance tech. You've got to spend $8,000 for the Prestige package just so you can pay another $1,800 for the driver assistance package. BMW isn't quite as steep, as you can get adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist for $2,700 on top of the base model. That said, it would be great if luxury automakers would act a little more like the Toyotas of the world and make this stuff standard. Unfortunately, the xDrive 30i I drove did not include the Driver Assistance Plus package, so I was unable to see how BMW's tech compares with that of Audi and Alfa Romeo. However, Jonathan Gitland does discuss it a bit in our recent review of the BMW 530e. iDrive the iDrive display with a default 3-panel layout. It's very well done. CarPlay support is $300 extra. Android Auto is mere. I think the X3 had me confused with someone else. If you want to know exactly how powerful your X3 is at any given moment, you can display horsepower and torque on the center display. The X3 instrument panel could have been better. The most notable improvement to the X3 from the 2017 model year is iDrive, BMW's infotainment tech. The X3 comes standard with a 6.5-inch display, which sticks out from the top front of the dashboard above the center console. The premium package ups the display to 10.3 inches and adds the aforementioned heads-up display. iDrive offers 3 ways to interact with it. I used the rotary dial and buttons on the center console, just to the right of the gear shift lever, the most. The dial lets you move through the menus and menu options. Pressing down is the equivalent of a mouse click. For things like address entry, you can trace letters on top of the dial with your finger, a nice touch. There are also buttons above and below the dial that act as shortcuts, including sat-nav and media. You can also make selections on the touchscreen display if you're not wearing gloves, but I found it easier to use the dial and buttons, in part because the display was just out of reach from my natural sitting position. Lastly, iDrive has a pretty capable voice assistant, courtesy of Nuance. You can call on it for directions, traffic incidents, and to make a phone call. If you have CarPlay capability and it's a $300 extra no Android Auto support, the voice assistant will turn you over to Siri for calls. I recently rented a 2017 X3 for an overnight road trip, and BMW has made some significant improvements to iDrive from last year's model. The screen itself is much nicer, and the graphics are crisper. Although you'll have to sometimes navigate through 3 or 4 levels of the UI to get to certain settings, the intuitive design makes it simple. iDrive defaults into a split-screen layout with radio, phone, and navigation tiles when you turn the car on. You can customize the screen as you see fit and can have the GPS map or anything else take over the entire display with the push of a button. BMW's $300 wireless CarPlay support is going to become even more costly. The company plans to charge an annual fee for CarPlay support beginning with the 2019 model year, which means you'll be renting part of the car you otherwise own. If you have an Android smartphone, you're out of luck, as it's not supported by BMW. And since we're on the subject of smartphones, BMW offers an $800 wireless charging option, which uses the Qi standard. Enlarged, there's 180 degrees of physical dial. The rest is an HD display. I'm not sold on BMW's instrument panel. It's an odd combination of physical and virtual, as you can see in the image above. The panel doesn't offer much that an old-school analog panel would, aside from the bottom bit, which can show a compass, basic trip info, and fuel consumption. Audi's approach of going all in with an HD display is a better use of the space. The rest of the X3's dashboard looks sharp, especially with the wood trim. Listing image by Eric Banchman, page 2. BMW's heads-up display, on the other hand, is outstanding. Not only does it show your speed, local speed limit, and GPS navigation cues, you can also change radio stations and place a phone call while keeping your hands on the wheel and eyes on the road. While you use the vehicle settings menu on the main screen to tweak the HUD to your liking, I quickly tired of red numbers reminding me I was speeding. Changing stations or scrolling through your phone book is accomplished by a couple of buttons on the steering wheel. Moving more functionality into the heads-up display and making it more easily accessible is a smart approach by BMW, one that other manufacturers should follow. I found the cockpit to be a little disappointing, however. Compared not only to the BMW X5, but to other mid-size crossovers like the Q5 and Stelvio, the ergonomics of the driver's seat were not great. My usual driving position in a crossover or SUV is sitting almost straight up with my left knee bent and foot on the floor. That's not a problem in the X5 or other crossovers, but in the X3, my leg was hard up against the door handle, which I found uncomfortable after a time. The storage well in the door is all but inaccessible while driving due to its depth. And I hated having to reach over and around the gear lever each time I wanted to have a sip of my coffee. The X3 only comes with sports-style seats. They're comfortable enough, and the power adjustments allow the driver to set the width of the seat wings on the side. There's also an extensible thigh support, which I appreciated. The premium package includes heated seats in both front and rear, which I appreciated given the winter temps in Chicago. The back seat is more or less standard for a mid-size crossover, with bench-style seating. Legroom and headroom are adequate for a 6'3" person. I didn't have access to anyone taller. I'm 6'1", except in the middle seat. No one wants to get stuck there. When the middle seat is empty, passengers can fold down a combination armrest and cup holder. Backseat passengers have their own climate control system, but there are no USB ports for charging devices. There are 2 in front. The rear seats fold down almost flat in the usual 40-20-40 split, increasing the available cargo area from 28.7 cubic feet to 62.7. If you add the towing package, you can haul just over 2 tons with the X3. where you sit to drive this ultimate driving machine. The front seats, you can kind of see how far the door handle sticks out. The back seat is comfortable enough for a couple of adults. There's room for a good amount of gear even with the back seats up. And there's even more cargo room with the back seats folded down. BMW's heads-up display is fantastic. Here it is giving me directions to rugby practice. You can change radio stations or make a phone call with the heads-up display as well. BMW's visual parking assist is fantastic. You know exactly how close you are to everything around you. But sometimes parking assist doesn't work. This is the result of the X3 parking itself. The sloped curb and concrete slab may have fooled it. On the road, the X3 is a fun drive. In sport mode, it's quick off the mark. Floor it in traffic, and after the usual brief lag, the turbo kicks in, albeit a bit slower than a Stelvio, and you're off to the races. The acceleration feels smooth and effortless. I decided to floor it on a straight-on ramp, and before I knew it, I was in going how fast territory. The engine roars pleasingly in sport mode, while comfort mode took away some of the stiffness in exchange for a more subdued ride. When I switched into economy, it drove differently. The car felt more sluggish as it went into gas-sipping mode, and it wasn't as fun. Speaking of gas, BMW rates the X3 at 25 mpg, 22 city, 29 highway. I couldn't get it above 23.5 mpg no matter how hard I tried, but the gas mileage was no doubt affected by the cold temperatures during testing. The X3 handles nicely, and it did extremely well on snowy and icy roads even with its all-season tires. I felt a touch higher up in the X3 than I do in my 2008 Chrysler Pacifica and the Q5 and Stelvio I've reviewed, making it feel more like driving an SUV. That's fantastic for visibility, but the X3 occasionally felt a trifle top-heavy around curves. Although the model I tested lacked the full driver assist package with adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, it did have the full parking assist package, which has modes. The first mode comes up automatically when you throw the car into reverse or when you press the park assist button. The 10.3-inch display shows your surroundings with shadings all around the car so you know how close you are to hitting anything. The X3 took the garage space usually occupied by our Pacifica, and it's a tight turn from the alley into the garage, so I really appreciated the visual and audio cues when pulling in. If you don't want to park yourself, you can ask the car to do it. Hold down the park assist button, follow the on-screen prompts, and the X3 will park itself. Having moved to the suburbs 10 years ago, my parallel parking skills aren't what they used to be, and BMW's tech worked fantastic most of the time. There was one glitch, as you can see in the gallery above. It had some issues with a sloped curb and a bit of concrete in my neighborhood, ending up partially on the grass. If you love Beamers and are ready to graduate from a 3 Series or 5 Series to an SUV, there's a lot to like in the X3 redesign. It drives stacks up nicely against the competition, and even though you're sitting in that higher SUV perch, you'll never forget you're behind the wheel of the BMW. But if you want all of the technological bells and whistles, CarPlay, in-car Wi-Fi, wireless charging, and adaptive cruise control, you'll end up spending close to $60,000. That's a touch more than the competition, and unless you're sold on the BMW badge, that might not be worth it.